Flamy Grant, welcome to Head on Fire. Thank you so much for being here.
My head is absolutely on fire and I'm so excited to be here. Yay! Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so pumped and pleased to do it. You have had a busy week, a busy few days, a busy
Have I?
month.
Really? I'm unfamiliar. What's been going on? It's just been an absolute freaking whirlwind and I don't know, I feel lucky just to be like awake and standing right now. So
So for folks who aren't familiar with you, let people know who you are and what it is that you do.
absolutely. So my name is Flamy Grant. I am the shame-slaying, hip-swaying, singing, songwriting drag queen from the Bible Belt. Although I've lived in San Diego for the past 17 years and am getting ready to move back to my stomping grounds of Asheville, North Carolina. And yeah, it's been a couple weeks. I don't know if we want to go into the story, like tell a little bit of why we're talking
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. So your debut album, Bible Belt Baby, came
That's
out.
right.
I mean, almost a year ago,
Almost, yeah,
right?
October of 2022.
October 2022, and suddenly you are up there. You are outselling Lauren Daigle
For 9 days. For 9 days, I did
on
outsell Lauren Daigle.
the Christian gospel charts. We've got a
What?
drag queen who is the number one best-selling gospel album in America.
Crazy, right?
At the same time that Jason Aldean's Sundown Town song is the number one song everywhere, we've got a number one hit from a drag queen on the gospel charts. So
I mean,
like,
this is America right now, is it not?
yeah.
Like this is our us polarized in the most extreme ways, and here we
How
are.
did this happen? I would like to hear the story because I'll be
Yes.
honest. Googling you is kind of hard. Like I was trying to be as informed as I possibly could. A listener of mine clued me into you and your story, and I was like, "What is going on?" And there's not much out there. I mean, like it's all like in social media drama, like TikTok
Hmm.
drama. So you just never know like
Yep.
how this actually happened. So
Yeah, and
walk me through it.
who has the time to scroll through Twitter feeds? Like, ugh. Um, yes, let's do that. Let's walk you through it. So yeah, the album came out, like as you said, almost a year ago,
Uh
and I've
huh.
just been touring it, playing it. You know, it's done respectably for an independent artist. It's been
Sure.
fine.
Sure.
But let's see. So 3 weeks ago now, I was in Nashville and I was opening up for my friend Derek Webb,
Uh huh.
who is a former Christian musician. He used to be massive. He was one of the lead singers for a band called Caedmon's Call, which was a massive band in the late 90s, early
Uh huh.
2000s.
It's
They
ringing a bell. I had
yeah.
forgotten existed.
Yeah, they were just one of my favorite bands growing up, and so I've followed Derek's career, his these 20 some years, and
I was I was a DC Talk church kid.
oh yeah,
Did
totally.
we do DC Talk?
We did. We were Jesus freaks, baby, all the way. Yeah, so yeah, God is doing a new thing. That's what's playing in my head right now. Um, anyway, Derek and I have become friends over the years, and he's an ally, incredibly wonderful human being, very supportive. And put out a song called "Boys Will Be Girls" recently. That
Hmm.
is a song he wrote for a friend of his who came out to him, and he was the first person that this friend came out to, and he wanted to honor that moment. And so he wrote this beautiful, gorgeous song, and then he invited me to be on the track with him, and we made a music video, and I put Derek in drag, and he looks like Morgan McMichaels. It's amazing. And then
It's a great music video. I watched it this morning.
yeah,
It's
it's
fabulous.
so good. So anyway, yeah, Derek invited me out to Nashville for his album release show, and I was opening for him, and we posed for a photo. The photo made the rounds, I guess, on social media and got in front of the eyeballs of one Sean Foyt, who is the only thing I knew about him 3 weeks ago was that he was the worship pastor who was famous during the height of pandemic for holding those um, big, massive, unmasked worship services like in Huntington
Of
Beach and LA.
course.
And now
Of
he's just like,
course.
yeah, of course, right?
The Venn diagram between like bigot and anti-vaxxer is a circle.
Yeah, yeah. There's yeah, exactly completely 360 degrees. So yeah, so that's kind of what I knew about him. But he saw this photo and he made a tweet. He wrote a tweet and just said, This is the end goal of deconstruction, which is the buzzword for like people who are kind of thinking critically about the inherited religion that they have that they were given as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So spiritual deconstruction, he's like, this is the end goal of spiritual deconstruction, a drag queen performing with a Christian artist. It's the end time. It's truly the end times. So, which, you know, we're used to these dramatics from the far right. And we're also used to conservative Christians saying that these are truly the end times. My mom said it in 1985. So I'm just waiting. I'm still waiting for those end times to happen. But um, yeah, so I was just being cute in a response. And I just said, end goal, baby, we're just getting started. And Sean, I guess, didn't like me commenting because he came back and was like, well, at least good for us. Hardly anyone listens to you or cares what you do. And I
Oh
guess he had,
no.
yeah,
Shots fired.
right?
That's
To
not
a
something to
drag
say on
queen.
social media. Come
To a
on.
drag queen, nonetheless. Like, do not say these words to a drag queen unless you are ready for her to rally and make every possible effort to prove you wrong. So he was right if he had only just looked at my Twitter account, because I haven't used Twitter very much. I had like
Sure.
600 followers. It was not a big thing for me. So he probably saw my follower count and was like, well, okay, whatever. You're a nothing burger, which is what another Christian artist has called me in the past 2 weeks. So I went to my TikTok, though, where I had quite a few more followers. And I said, hey, y'all, here's what's happening. We have a conservative worship leader who thinks that, the music I'm making, the message I have doesn't matter. And I think that we can probably prove that to be a false accusation. And I posted it and I was like, well, this could totally flop. Like a lot of times, TikTok, the TikTok algorithm is a hard one to crack anyway.
Sure.
And so I went to bed and I was like, we'll see what happens. And the next morning I woke up and sure enough, the video had been seen a lot and my song was
Mm-hmm.
already at number 6 on the iTunes Christian charts, which is the first time a drag queen has ever been on any Christian
Sure.
chart
Sure.
anywhere. So that was huge. And we just kind of kept the momentum going all day. And by the end of the day, the song was number 1. My album was number 1. And then the album stayed at number 1 for 9 days after that. So it's been an absolutely unexpected, crazy little turn of events here for this little regional drag queen.
I mean, first of all, congratulations.
Thank
It
you.
is, I mean, it's amazing to see that kind of bump. It is amazing to see. I mean, I've been the recipient of a few little weird kind of viral bumps every now and then. It's very
Mm-hmm.
strange to have like Ellen DeGeneres's team. Like, yeah, no, we're all kind of very spiritually ambivalent to Ellen DeGeneres right now, but like
Right.
it's still weird to see her
Of
repost your
course.
video to like 150 million people or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
I've been the recipient of that a few times, and even though it's very temporary, like oh sure, my book bumped up or my video bumped up or whatever for a few days. I don't think people realize like that, even that tiny bump, that little level of visibility can suddenly open doors. Suddenly there's people calling you.
Yeah.
What is that? Are first of all, are re- uh, recording companies like are record companies reaching out? Are Christian record companies reaching out?
Not the Christian ones, but what it has done is opened up some really fascinating conversations within, so we call it the CCM, contemporary Christian music industry,
Mm-hmm.
which, just for the record, I did release my album in that genre, and
Mm-hmm.
I, as a drag queen, and that was all
Mm-hmm.
very intentional, and I did
I
grow up
love your
listening.
cover. It's very Trixie
Thank
Mattel.
you.
Like it's very just
Yes.
like Miley Cyrus, Dolly Parton, Trixie Mattel, like
Those are all
gay
references.
cowgirl. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Gay cowgirl that just descended from a spaceship that was lost in time from the 1950s. It's
I love
fantastic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But yeah, I did that because, well, for a lot of reasons. I mean, the album is what I would consider a Christian album, especially one that I grew up listening to in the 90s and early 2000s, when Christian music was a lot more singer-songwriter like
Sure.
stuff than it is now. Now it's just worship music, which is
Yeah.
boring as hell to me. Like we sing those in church on Sunday. Like, why would I
Yeah.
want to listen to that all week? I want to hear people's stories. I want to hear good songwriting. And so that's what I tried. That's what I set out to write. And it just happens to be about a lot about my spiritual journey, about my gender identity journey. And my story started in evangelicalism. I was raised by the people who unfortunately elected the 45th president.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's my journey from that to whatever the hell I am now spiritually, which I don't necessarily have a word for, but it felt like it fit in that genre. And it was a lot of the songs are speaking back to the church about the harm that the church has caused
Mm-hmm.
to queer kids who grow up in their ranks, right? So that's why the album was already sitting there in the Christian genre. It's why I already had a song kind of prepped and primed and ready to shoot to the top. Like I didn't have to do any work. It was just, I just told people to go listen to the song that was already there. And yeah, it has opened up incredible doors. I've got conversations happening with people in the CCM industry. Again, not necessarily with the labels, but with people who are ready to see a change in this industry and ready to see it
Mm-hmm.
become more inclusive and embrace the diversity that the rest of the world is, light years ahead on. And so that's beautiful, and I'm excited to see where that goes. And then, yeah, things like Kristen Chenoweth retweeted or reposted on her Instagram stories one of my posts, and Michelle Visage follows me now, which is an insane thing. I don't even know. I like that's now every time I post on Instagram now, I like
Someone's getting a casting call. Someone
don't jinx it,
someone
don't
is
jinx it.
someone is getting a casting call. Someone.
I swear,
Listen,
every time I
that
post,
Little Miss Rue loves herself a little bit of controversy. Like when
oh,
she heard straight drag queen, Maddie Morphosis was on that show
yep,
in 72 hours.
yep, twins, yeah.
Christian gospel singer, songwriter, drag queen, girl, you
We'll
about to
see.
mollywalk to the
We will see. We will see. But I mean, I do run everything through my Michelle Visage filter now when I post it. I'm like, if Michelle sees this, what is she gonna think?
Oh God. I probably should do that more. I probably should think, who are the people that follow me? Maybe I should take a moment. Maybe I should have some level of filter before saying things on the internet where millions of people can see me. And then I completely abandoned that thought and just say whatever I was going to say anyway. So
You
you're
know what? It's
probably doing it better than
it's
me.
working for you. It's working for you, babe. Don't stop. Don't stop.
So I do want to get into that because the intersection of queer identity and the modern American Christian church is oftentimes depicted as like diametrically opposed. Like in
Yes.
order to be one thing, you absolutely cannot be the other. I think it's easy to like break down like what's your opinion on that or whatever, but do you understand why that diametric opposition exists? I think that's a more interesting question. Like do you
Yeah, that is
understand
interesting.
that separation?
Yeah. I mean, I understand it from the perspective of what I was raised in, which
Mhm.
again, I like to make the distinction that evangelicalism, American evangelicalism, is a sect of Christianity. It
Mhm.
is not representative of the religion, of the entire religion, and it is new. It is very new in the grand scheme of things. It is not connected to ancient Christian traditions in almost any way, and so much of the teaching that evangelicalism has brought us, including very anti-queer, anti-LGBTQ plus, you know, thinking, is very new. That the word homosexuality was introduced into the Bible in 1946 for the first time.
Mhm.
Prior to that, not an issue. Most liturgical traditions, ancient traditions, don't have much to say about queer people. Like we've been welcome, we've been fine in a lot of those spaces for forever. Um, so I like to point that out because unfortunately, evangelicalism is kind of the face of Christianity in America because it's so politically power hungry, because it's so vocal and so loud. And these are the people that we see on the news, like protesting our drag shows, protesting whatever protesting everything. They just love to protest. So they're very they're the face right now, and I just like to put that reminder out there that we have traditions that love their queer members, love queer people, and do a great job of being inclusive. Um, Now, for me, and answering that question of why do we have this just the, like you said, diametrically opposed. And you have people on both sides who say this, right? You have
Mhm.
evangelical, conservative, fundamentalist Christians who are like, you cannot be a Christian and queer. You cannot be a Christian and trans. You definitely cannot be a Christian and be a drag queen or a drag performer. Um, and then you also have people in our queer community who are like, you can't, like, you just can't be a Christian because look at what Christianity is doing to our community. And I
Mhm.
completely understand that posture. I completely get it. My thing, and one of the reasons why I'm still kind of occupying space there is because evangelicals are the ones who made and raised me, right? I didn't, um, and they, I was groomed to be one of them. Like
Mhm.
I was indoctrinated heavily from the youngest of ages to, like, I was raised male. I was going to be a leader in this patriarchal system that we had in our church, and I was going to believe all the right things. And
Mhm.
I, I tried. I tried so hard to follow that path because it felt like what God wanted for me. It felt like the only reasonable path ahead for me because I was told that everything else was going to be sinful and lead to my destruction and despair and me lying dead in a gutter somewhere, right? And it just didn't take. It didn't work. And there are still so many queer kids who are growing up in those spaces where they're being kept, they're being sheltered and isolated from seeing our thriving queer community and seeing the queer joy that we have and seeing um, the beautiful, hopeful life that's ahead for them as queer people. I didn't have that example at all growing up. And that's part of why it took me so long to come out, so long to start doing drag. I was 37 when I did drag for the first time. And I just want to be in those spaces so that there's a visible option uh, present for those kids growing up. And I'm not under any delusion that those, like, conservative parents are going to show a drag queen to their kids, but there's a higher probability that they'll find me thanks to the internet, thanks to everything that's been happening, especially with this blow up around Sean Foyt's tweet. I just think it's important.
What does it mean to you now? And I want to respect the fact that, as somebody, I mean, I grew up in a town of 585 people, and yet we
Mm.
had 9 Baptist churches. Like, I had two, just on my street there were 2 churches. Just to get from my house to the corner intersection, I had to drive past 2 churches. Like, we had a
Hmm.
lot, and there were less than 600 people in my town. I get, like, that a person's relationship with the church and then with the label of Christian, one, can be 2 different kinds of relationships, but 2, can absolutely change and morph over time.
Yeah.
Um, so respecting all of that, what does it mean to you right now, especially in the midst of all of this, to identify as Christian? Or is
Yeah.
that a label that you apply to yourself right now?
I mean, for better or worse, I do.
Mhm.
I think because I put myself in that genre, I have chosen this path forward. And
I mean, you topped the Christian chart, so you're kind of in it now,
yeah,
at least.
yeah, I am. I am. And it is something I wrestle with and struggle with every day. I mean, I like to say that my relationship to my spirituality does not feel complicated to me, but my relationship to Christianity for sure feels complicated. And it's for all the reasons we've already been discussing. I don't. It's exhausting to have to say, well, sure, I identify as Christian, but not that kind of Christian. And let me give that whole spiel I just gave you about evangelicalism and all of it. Like, it's like, who wants to have that conversation 18 times a day? Um, and so it's tough. I vacillated a long time actually before releasing the record and deciding to actually go with that Christian genre because at the end of the day, I'm a folk singer songwriter who happens to be in
Mhm.
drag. That's what I do, and this album just happened to tell my spiritual story. But uh, part of why I chose to do it was watching. So my friend Semler, who is actually the first out queer artist to top the Christian charts in iTunes. They've done it, I think, 3 times before me. Uh, I really watched what happened with them over these past 3 years. The first time it happened for them was in the middle of pandemic, and seeing how they were able to mobilize their fan base, and then seeing the response from their fans saying, like, this gives me hope I haven't felt in years. Like I left the church
Mm-hmm.
forever ago. Now I, maybe see a way forward with this new way. Like this some. It just felt very fresh and very new to people. It didn't feel like we were. Um, it felt less like we were doing this battle cry from within the church, trying to change
Mm.
things, and more like we were just kind of going to carve our own path forward, and say, hey, if you identify as Christian, if you were raised as Christian, if that language still speaks to you, if it still works for you, um, like there's a place for you, and um, you don't have to accept this long list of tenets and dogma and doctrine that the church insists you must accept in order to be Christian, right? Um, so it feels hard. All of that to say it feels really hard. And there are days, ask me on any given weekday and I'll probably be like, "Oh, hell no. I'm not an actual Christian because I do not want to be associated with what Christianity stands for in this country." And then you ask me on a Wednesday and I might say, I'm gonna take that label. I'm gonna claim it because for the reasons I've already said, those
Sure.
kids need to know that it's also kind of a gosh, everything I'm saying is like the worst nightmare of evangelicals, but kind of a gateway, right? Like it's like let me show you that there is this version of Christianity that is progressive and inclusive, and that's less scary than just fully abandoning your faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I had to do years ago, and then kind of come back and rediscover my spiritual self and claim beliefs that work for me and spiritual practices that work for me. I fully abandoned. I was an apostate. I had a podcast I called Heathen specifically so that I could have those conversations with people. And yeah, it's a shorter jump to be able to go to it's still a
But
Christian
I
space, but yeah.
like statisticians fully understand where you're coming from. So what a lot of people don't realize, and I mean I wrote about this, my last book was for sort of dabblers, like spiritual nuns.
Mm,
um it the largest religious group in the United States right now is still self-identified Christians, but that number is decreasing.
hmm.
I don't know if it's not exponentially, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't realize is if you take all of the religious groups and you actually rank them by size, the second largest religious group are people who consider themselves atheist, agnostic, or atheist, agnostic, or basically having no religion. But among that group, the largest group inside of that none is people who consider themselves spiritual but not religious. And when
Mm,
you break that down even further, people, millennials, younger, folks, 40-ish and younger are just rapidly leaving the church, like what you the I like the language you used earlier of inherited religion,
yeah.
because what they're seeing is that, well, to identify as X means to, at least at this time societally, appear to agree with all of the things that label seems to be advocating for.
Yeah.
And these folks are breaking away, not because they don't want to have a faith.
Hmm.
I spoke to David Archuleta earlier this summer.
Mm,
It's like I don't know what to call myself because I do still have faith. I do still believe in a higher power. I do still, have a spiritual life. Um, but I'm gonna have to figure out what that means for me.
yeah.
Maybe that means trying new things. Maybe that means eventually I'll have a different kind of spiritual label. Maybe I'll just exist in this spiritual milieu forever where I just
Mm,
kind of am a spiritual person and I dabble in a lot of different cauldrons. But, so I just, for anybody who might casually see whatever this episode ends up being titled, something like, can you be a Christian drag queen or something like that, and
yeah.
immediately think that, like, oh, you're some kind of outlier.
Mm,
I
mm,
don't think people quite realize that, like, the numbers tell us you're not only not an outlier, you are becoming an increasingly common majority in this country of people who are walking away from necessarily if we're going to call it organized religion, because they don't agree with the transphobia, the homophobia, the racism, the xenophobia that's being advocated for in those, the mega churches, the stuff that gets on TV, the Joel Osteens of the world, that kind of thing. But they still believe, they still have that foundational spiritual belief, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to give that up because that still rings true to them.
Yeah.
And so what I don't think a lot of people realize is that for a lot of people, you're probably like, oh yes, finally, yes, that is me.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
you're a lot of people are probably going to start seeing themselves in you, and that might open doors for other people to say, you know what, me too.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important to call out because people think when they think religion, they think all of the anities or the isms, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, that kind of thing, completely forgetting that there's a very, very large and growing group, the
Yeah.
fastest growing group in the country, that is, well, I'm spiritual, but I don't want to identify as a religion because right now that feels like an attack on my queer, my black, my brown, my disabled brothers, sisters, friends, family, siblings, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I mean, I want to turn it back to you, and I want to break down further that concept of inherited religion.
Mm.
Can I ask what piece of that? Because I know that earlier you used language that folks who oppose people like you and I uh, use, that language of indoctrination, that language of this is something that was given to me. How did you decide? Because it when you break away from something and you examine it from that 30,000-foot view, and then you decide to come back to it, how did you decide that the thing that you inherited was indeed meant for you?
Mm. Wow, I just appreciate everything that you just laid out in front of us. First of all, that is so helpful.
Thanks. I probably just committed copyright infringement against myself. I might have just quoted my own book. So
I love it. Um, yes, so for me, the practice of deconstruction, the practice of evaluating those inherited beliefs for the first time critically, really, because you're not encouraged, right? You're not encouraged to question growing up in those spaces. You're just encouraged to believe, and actually, it's held as the highest virtue. Is this like belief without proof, belief without reason, is held to be it's aspirational.
the childlike faith.
Yes,
I've
childlike
been in
faith.
so many revivals where I was
Oh.
told I needed to have a childlike faith.
Mm. It's the Truman Show, which is one of my favorite movies. That
Mm.
line, we accept the reality with which we're presented, right? Which we
Mm-hmm.
do as kids. We just believe that Santa Claus is coming, and then we grow older and we start to recognize that we don't see any evidence in our lives of a magical like ability to climb down a chimney, and so we start to question that. And I think it's the same with our religious beliefs, like what's not aligning in our experience with what we've been taught. And that is, I think, why LGBTQ plus issues are like a touch point right now, because that does not align in any way with the vitriolic suppression and oppression of and the homophobia, transphobia, all of it, and the other issues that you've mentioned, the xenophobia, the racism, are huge, massive like touch points as well. But you can probably vouch for that. That I've seen multiple studies where like the number one reason people are leaving is that LGBTQ plus issue. And I forgot what question I was answering, but
How did you decide that the
oh
religion that
yes,
you inherited was indeed for you? Because you
yeah.
did break away, and you
Hmm.
obviously had your own spiritual journey, and you came back to that.
Yeah, I did. And I think ultimately what it comes down to for me is because that indoctrination was so strong, it's still the language I speak. It's still
Mm.
like even just like the metaphors of the faith, the
Hmm.
we like fire and water and shadow and light and things like that just really speak to me, especially as a songwriter. Like I love
Hmm.
to live in um creative metaphor like that. And I think there is a lot of beauty. Actually, I do think there's a lot of beauty in Christianity, in especially mystic Christianity, and in a lot of
Oh man, you get into those Gnostics and you're going, whoo, you're gonna you're gonna have a good time.
careful. Yeah, you'll enjoy some substances with them, and yeah, it'll be a whole thing. So I do find some beautiful things there, but at the end of the day, if you want to pin me down, and a lot of people do, um, I'm a universalist. Like I believe it's for everybody. Like I
Mhm.
believe that the like verses like "For God so loved the world" are true. Like if there's a divine, if there is a creator, whatever you want to call that other dimensional spiritual energy, um, I believe it is love, and I believe it is universal. And I don't believe that, and this is why so many people discount me as a Christian, because I don't believe that you have to pray a sinner's prayer specifically to Jesus, in order to have a rich and fulfilled and whole spiritual life that is going to lead you to whatever's next. I like heaven, whatever. We can't know. That's the thing. We can't know. Like that's why we have to use the word belief, because
Mhm.
these aren't truths. They are things we choose to trust in about unseen reality, which may not even be real at the end of the day. So for me, it purely comes down to like it's cultural almost. Like Christianity is cultural for me, and not to keep coming back to that same point, but it's because it's cultural for me, and because I know the language. Those are the queer kids that I know how to speak to, and those are the ones that who I can relate to the most, because we have that shared experience, and I want to be there for them at the end of the
No, but
day.
I
So,
understand. I really, I mean, I'm a writer. I understand that concept of this is the language that I speak.
mhm,
Can I tell a new story with that framework?
mm,
Absolutely. I mean,
mhm,
there are no new stories out there. We've
yeah,
told all of the stories we are going to tell. Every single type of story, every romance, every fantasy, every drama, every science fiction, every story has been told. The
yes,
evil has been slain a million times over. There are no new stories. There is just existing frameworks and how we reinterpret them. There is your
mhm,
version of that story.
yeah,
And that is something that only you can decide, and only you can work out for yourself, and only you can reinvent for yourself. And I think that it's important to kind of call that out and say, okay, this is the language that I speak. This is the language that I understand. This is the framework that I'm comfortable operating within. Now, do I have to do all of the things that everybody else has always done inside of this framework? No, it's a framework.
mhm,
What does it mean to die and pass on to wherever is next? I don't know. I'm going to decide that for myself. What does it mean to have a relationship with a higher power, whatever I'm
mm,
going to end up calling that? I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that out for myself. But for right now, this is the framework that I'm most comfortable operating in. I think that that is a very human, very honest way of speaking about that, because I think a lot of people end up doing that.
yeah,
They just take the love and they leave all the rest of the hate out of it.
yes, yeah,
And then
and
inside of that framework, they figure out what it means to them.
absolutely, yeah. And I completely understand that that can feel super problematic, because there are those of us who are like, we should be raging against the isms,
Yeah.
and the phobias, right? Like we should absolutely be doing our
So I did want
damnedest.
to ask that, because when you call yourself a Christian singer,
Hmm.
gay Christian singer, I'm a gay millennial. I feel like I have the same red flags in that raise up at the back of my head when I hear gay Christian. I hear log cabin Republican.
Oh yeah,
I hear somebody who's advocating for conversion therapy. I hear forced celibacy. I hear all of those things. And I understand the impulse to put a wall up first
yeah.
and then like make you break it down. How has your kind of, I guess, coming out as a Christian drag queen? How has that been received by the queer community?
Oh, mostly, mostly in a really positive way.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, yeah. And honestly, it's been the same with Christians, the Christian community. Like most of it has been positive. Most of it's been feedback from both sides. It's been like, oh my gosh, like this is a thing we need. Like this is a
Mm-hmm.
thing our community needs for healing and as a mirror, to be able to look at and those kinds of things. So, but yeah, I've definitely gotten those comments too that are just like, why on earth are you hanging out with people who want to oppress you and harm you? And I am a victim of conversion therapy myself, although I self-enrolled. Um, in that for 5 years. So
Mm.
I still consider myself very much a victim because I was indoctrinated to do that, right? Um, I I understand exactly how deeply damaging and harmful this stuff can be. I've lost friends, who lost their battle with themselves in those kinds of spaces. I was on the verge many times in my life of taking my own life as a result of being in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no I honestly have no argument against the people who want to rage against it, and I will champion that just as much as I will champion the person who wants to like go in and do our damnedest to love things better,
Mm-hmm.
right? To make things better with love. Uh and honestly, again, ask me on different days and you might find me in different camps on that myself. Um my own experience has been that when I personally show up in a way and with a posture that is maybe a little less accusatory, um, and more open to conversation and really just showing up wholly myself, like come as a drag queen and all of that with all of your sparkle, but show up in love. I've found conversations happening that I never imagined would be possible, especially if you spend most of your life on the internet. Like especially if most of the discussions you have about this stuff are with people online, like it does not seem possible that there's going to be places um, to meet and actually hear each other and speak to each other well. And I've just found that to be not true. Um, so that's kind of aspirationally for me, that's my goal, is to be more of that. But at the same time, there are moments when I, I don't like culture war as a theory, and I don't like that we have so much battle language and those kinds of things. But at the same time, when someone is literally like taking lives, or when an ideology is literally causing the death of our queer family, then we have to fight that in whatever ways possible.
Something that I feel like we've both kind of skirted around is this idea of going where you're wanted,
Hmm.
which is a conversation that I think a lot of queer folks have been having for the last couple of decades, really,
Yeah.
like ever since we first heard about bakeries not wanting to make a gay wedding cake, and especially now after the recent Supreme Court ruling, saying that basically businesses can now discriminate against queer people if they want, if they say that they have a sincerely held religious belief and they are some kind of artistic creative and they shouldn't have. I don't know. They put some codifiers on it that we're already seeing being tested. There's a
Yep.
judge in Texas who's basically saying that she shouldn't have to give gay weddings because I guess her judginess is a form of art or something. I guess I don't
Right.
know. Um, but what are your feelings on going where you're wanted, but on the flip side of that, not going where you're not wanted? Because as a Christian or as a drag queen singing gospel music or singing Christian music, at least right now, you're certainly inserting yourself in a space where some might say, we're not wanted there. Why
Mhm.
would you go there?
Yeah.
Why not just call yourself a folk singer? Why not just, etc.? Why insert yourself into that conversation? Um, so Flamy Grant, why are you going where you're not wanted?
I'm going to the Dove Awards this October, which are the Christian like Grammys. They're not nearly as big a deal as the Grammys, obviously, but
Listen, I have seen the Fighting Temptations. I am fully aware
okay,
of the
great,
Dove
good,
Awards.
yes. um, yeah. So I'm going. I'm going with my friend Semler, who's the queer artist I mentioned earlier, and um, honestly, I don't know that I have a great reason for why I'm doing that other than I have a contrarian streak. I absolutely have a contrarian streak, and I enjoy um the provocative. I don't think you become a drag queen unless you have a little bit of love for
Sure.
like provoking and
Do you have your
getting people
outfit
to.
picked out?
No, not yet, but I am working on it, and it is going to be inspired by an Amy Grant red carpet look. Yes. Um, so I don't know. I guess I see value in poking the bear a little bit sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand the risk, and ultimately, this all may very well end with me saying, yeah, Christian music is not for us, and we're not wanted, and it's not a thing that is worth investing effort into changing. And so let's start a new thing. In fact, I already feel myself probably being pulled in that direction as I have these conversations with people in the industry and folks who've been working in Christian music for forever, but are fed up with all the isms and the phobias. Um, and it just seems like there might be an opportunity here to let's start a queer spiritual label, like let's start our own record company that is queer spiritual music, and like let's not even maybe call it Christian, but like let's market it in those spaces and do that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I really right now I am kind of in an experimental place. This is all super fresh and brand new to me too, by the way. Like I never expected to have this kind of a spotlight on what I'm doing, especially after my album's been out almost a year. I've just been touring it and having a good time with it. My shows are fun. Like we have a good
Mm-hmm.
time. It's like probably 50% like queer Christians and ex-evangelicals who come to my shows. Um, and I love that space. I love going where we are wanted and creating our own spaces. Like I just think
Mm-hmm.
that's what's beautiful about the queer community, our ability to do chosen family, our ability to have our own bars, our own clubs, all of it. Like I love that. And I guess my answer is just this is one big experiment right now, and we'll see where it goes.
But I do think it's important to be, I mean, if you're not the first, at least be somebody who's willing to take up space in a place, because if we don't ever test those waters, if we don't ever poke the bear, the wall dividing us will just continue to get bigger and
True.
scarier and more impenetrable, because
Mm-hmm.
the more time and distance that we put between when we were allowed in the space and now, the harder it'll be to break back in.
Yeah,
And the more
that's
we
so true.
the more of our own space, the more of our own liberty to exist freely in the world that we will be conceding. So, I mean, I think it's incredibly important and valuable what you're doing.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right about especially when you think about how we can't. It's hard to become something that you've never seen represented, right? It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
envision a future that you've never seen represented. And so, yes, in that regard, I think it does. I think it creates an opportunity for people to see, for devout Christian people to see their faith in a new way, and maybe come more towards more towards us, right? Rather than us having to constantly go in and remind them that we're human and are worthy of love and are deserving of space in the world.
But I can tell by your name that you like a little mischief, because in the Christian music world, Amy Grant is an interesting phenomenon, because
Mm-hmm.
she's about as like queen of Christian pop as it gets, and
Yes.
also like has a giant scarlet letter on her.
Yes.
Why Amy Grant? Do you love Amy Grant?
Love.
Tell me about your relationship with Amy Grant and Christian gossip.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like every millennial remembers like the Vince Gill, Amy Grant 90s thing. And then
Hmm.
she became like, well, I'm going to do pop. And then she's like, never mind. I'm a Christian girly again.
Yes. So so many people, especially as with all the new followers and the new eyeballs on my social media, so many people have just been like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're making fun of Amy Grant." And I'm like, I just want to be like, "Bitch, like, would you take 2 seconds and look at my body of work? Like, I covered an Amy Grant song on my record. I
First of
adore
all, do
the
they not
woman."
know anything about drag culture?
No,
Like
they don't.
to have a drag queen name themselves after you
Yeah,
is not an ounce of shade.
never.
Not a single drop of shade is, and that is one of the highest honors. That is
Absolutely,
immortality.
yes. But unfortunately, these are people who are encountering drag for the first time, or really
Okay.
encountering it for the first time. So yeah, no, they don't get it. I love her. I absolutely love her. I grew up on her music. I was there for the secular crossover. I loved it. I my mom once took a cassette tape, House of Love, which was the record that had the Vince Gill duet on it. My mom took it out of the car radio player one Sunday on our way to church because she was like, "This isn't about Jesus. It's about love. It's a love song." And I was like, "But it's Amy, Mom. Put Amy back on." And part of why she looms so large in my life is because I just wasn't allowed to listen to anything else growing up. I was only allowed to listen to Christian music. So Amy was, like you said, she was the queen of Christian pop, is probably
Yeah,
still the undisputed. She's like now share status, right, in Christian pop. Like
for
she's just,
sure. For
yeah,
sure.
exactly. So, I mean, she got the Kennedy Center honors this year. Like she's actually been on a roll lately. So, uh, I
Have you heard from Amy Grant's people?
no,
Has this
well,
reached her?
I mean, so it's definitely
That's not a no.
it's definitely reached her. I was actually able to sign one of my vinyls to her, and a friend of hers like gave it to her, so she knows I exist. We haven't spoken. I have not met Amy. I've never
Oh,
spoken with
this is
her.
happening. I feel it happening at the Devil Awards. I feel it.
Oh my
I
god,
feel it
could
in
you
the air.
imagine? Could you
I feel it.
imagine? I don't even think she's going, but who knows?
I feel
Um,
like if she knows you're going, she
well,
has
we're
to.
we're being very public about it, so hopefully she'll
I
find
mean,
out
talk
that we're going to
about,
be
I mean,
there.
listen, when was the last time she was really talked about in mainstream headlines? Like,
Well,
this is a great, this would,
she's been in headlines in the past year specifically for things like her pro LGBTQ stance. Like
I
she took fire
know.
from Christians. I know.
I just feel like, oh, I could see it. I could see it.
Yeah,
Oh, a duet. Okay. I'm just going to just speak these things into existence for you.
yeah. I'd die. I would absolutely die. And they'd have to resurrect me for me to sing that duet. No, so one of the things I love about Amy, and actually this is just like a common like queer, especially for like queer men and gay men who grow up, like we just, even without me being immersed in any gay culture whatsoever, I still gravitated toward a diva, right? Like
Sure.
we
God, we love a
always
diva.
grow up and we get fascinated with like there's a woman who looms large in all of our lives, right? We all have that. And that was just Amy for me. And I, particularly when she went through that thing with Vince Gill in the 90s and all the Christians canceled her, and Christian bookstores tried to pull her music and that kind of stuff. Like, to me, that was a moment that I could resonate with as a queer kid. Like, even as deeply closeted as I was, like I could see all this hate coming her way, and I just know in my heart who she is because I've been listening
Hmm.
to her music this whole time, and I've gone to her concerts, and I have seen the kind of human that she is, and I'm like, no, 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 like we're wrong. Amy is like, a loving, good person who like wants the best for all of us. Like, can't you understand that? She's a benevolent diva. And so that was kind of a thing that, you know, like I never questioned or like, like I never had a doubt in my mind that I was going to be an Amy stan for life. And so, you know, it's those things like they create something in you as you're developing in adolescence and all of that. Like you just have strong attachments, and my strong attachment never left. And so when it came time for me to like imagine a drag persona and come up with a name, like it just made the most sense for me to do that. I just, yeah. I also, again, never really thought I would get to where am right now as a drag performer. So this was always kind of like more of a hobby initially, and I was like, oh, it'll be cute and fun. And now it's like, well,
I guess this is my life
I
now.
guess this is what I do now.
Do you have any other favorite Christian bands, pop singer? Like who was that for you? I remember, I mean, again, you know, I grew up in a very small Christian town, so I remember like that era of the Christian singer trying to do the crossover. I remember like the Stacey Oricos. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, you know, the what was it?
Rachel Lampa.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a name. Oh, wow. Ringing bells. I forgot I had in the back of my
Yeah.
head. Wow.
Jackie
Wow. Wow.
Velasquez. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, what was that band? I Dare You to
Six.
Move.
Oh,
Uh,
Switchfoot.
Switchfoot.
Yep.
Yeah. They were like, oh, we're the Christian punk guys.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
we're the answer to. Yeah. God. Now I'm forgetting band names.
But yeah,
This ain't a
totally.
scene.
I
It's a
mean, there were a
goddamn.
lot of them. Sixpence None the Richer, Jars of Clay. They all had like crossover
Yes.
success. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
loved all of them.
Absolutely.
I loved all
Uh-huh.
those bands. For me, like where I gravitated towards as I finally started listening to more popular, like secular music and not just Christian
Hmm.
music. The first album I ever bought that was not a Christian record was Natalie Merchant's Tiger Lily, and it's
Okay.
still top five for me. That record is
Sure.
just an absolute top five. It's beautiful, so well written. She's a goddess. I love Natalie Merchant, but I ended up kind of gravitating towards like the Lilith Fair movement of the '90s, and if I had a time machine, that is immediately where I would go. Like Lilith Fair 97, like that's where I would want to be. So that just that female
Give me
singer
some
songwriter,
Alanis, give me some
Alanis,
Natalie
Sarah
Merchant, give me some.
McLachlan,
Yeah.
Paula Cole, Sean
Oh yeah.
Colvin, like all of that. That's where I live.
Oh God, you said Paula Cole. Now I'm gonna have to go listen to that song.
Yes.
Johnny Came Home,
Do,
man.
do, 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 do. Yep. Mm-hmm. Also, watch some Dawson's Creek while you're at it.
I've never seen that show.
It actually hasn't
I've
aged all that
never.
well.
I don't think I'm sure it has not, but I don't think that anything that has ever been on any iteration of the CW or the WB or whatever we're calling it at the time, I don't
Yeah.
know that any of that is like made to age well. I feel like it is
No.
made to make teenagers of that era very horny, and that is
Yep.
all.
Yep.
I feel like Buffy has the only reason that that ages well is because of its diehard fan base.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah. I do want to be respectful of your time. We are coming up on it. So thank you so much for being here. Tell folks where they can find you online. Tell people about your
Yeah.
album.
Yeah, album, and I have a few singles and then more music coming out very soon. But yeah, you can
Yay.
I'm on your favorite streaming platform. So whatever you use, you can find me from Spotify to YouTube, Pandora, all of it. And I'm the only Flamy Grant out there. So that's an easy Google. My website is flamygrant.com if you want to see where I'm going to be live. I'm doing a lot of touring this fall. Like I said, I'm moving to the East Coast in 3 weeks, moving back to my stomping grounds of Western North Carolina. So I'll be on the East Coast a lot, but also Midwest and Texas and places like that. So come see me on the road. And then, yeah, just follow my social meds. I'm Flamy Grant everywhere.
So I'm gonna need some kind of sign for like when you get the drag race call.
Okay, we'll
Gonna
do it
meet like maybe
like a little
we
Carol
wear.
Burnett, like
Yeah, just like he wore emerald green in the album in the photo, so
yeah,
that means he
yeah.
got the call. It's coming, babe. Well, congratulations on all of your success. Flamy Grant, thank you so much for being here on Head on Fire. Thank you so much for everything that you are doing. Thanks for being here.
I'm so happy you had me. Thank you so much. It's an honor and yeah, just a real privilege to hear you. Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure. Have fun at the Dove Awards.
I will tell you how it goes.